First 13 years in Long Island, Dix Hills, Suffolk County, and then I moved to Northern Virginia, McLean, and I lived there on and off. I moved to Philadelphia for a couple of years, and I moved back to the DC area, and then now, of course, living in Arlington. So, been in Virginia for quite a while.
Great. How would you describe your Jewish background growing up? What role did Judaism play in your childhood and your upbringing?
Okay, that's a very good question. When I was younger, we lived near a synagogue, and I did go to Hebrew school, but my parents were not very religious. We would go to services on high holidays. There was always that interest in keeping to the Jewish faith and having it be very significant in our lives, but we weren't like as observant. My husband is modern Orthodox, and so over the course of my upbringing, I've sort of individualized myself and become a lot more religious on my own. And so, and he's actually more religious than me, and so he kind of brought me to another level of religiosity that we're compromising about. But yeah, it works very well, so it's very interesting.
Cool. That actually brings me to my next question. How would you compare your Jewish upbringing to your relationship with Judaism now? And for that matter, what does your Jewish identity mean to you?
Okay. Let me take a second to think about that.
No problem. It's all recorded.
Okay. Well, being Jewish to me when I was younger was more of an identity that was a superficial identity. I was Jewish. I ate Jewish food. I went to Jewish services at shul, but I didn't really understand what that really meant in more of a philosophical or spiritual way. And when as I grew older through yoga and other activities, I've sort of deepened my spiritual practice. And I often say that my husband Adam was very responsible for a lot of times linking Judaism with spirituality that I was gaining through yoga philosophy. So I believe myself to be pretty observant, not very orthodox. And the things that are different now than when I was younger is that I do keep a kosher home. We are, for the most part, my husband's Shomer Shabbos, and I've sort of, joined him in those practices, even though, I'm at free will to do what I like. But of course, because I haven't crossed that level myself yet, but for the most part, I am, I guess, observantly Shomer Shabbos for, I guess, from an outsider perspective, even though it's not like 100%, if that makes sense.
Gotcha. So you might check your cell phone, or you might flip a light, or
Right.
go outside and buy a juice, but it's not full, but it's more so than what other people do?
More so, right. I can use public transportation, but I will definitely not work on those days. And I've actually learned to really appreciate the Sabbath much more now than I have years ago, because I really see it as being a rest and just an appreciation for everything I have, and just a break from just the work that I do and the things that I think about all week long. It just gives me a time to really reflect on who I am as a person in the world, and how I want to see myself grow. So it's just like it allows me to have a break, if that makes sense.
Definitely makes sense. I think that's something that appeals to a lot of people. When did you first try yoga, and what about it appealed or appeals to you now? I mean, whenever you started it, what's made you stick with it?
Okay. I started yoga, I believe, for the first time with a Jane Fonda video. This was many, many years ago. This was probably when I was maybe like 15, 16. I love Jane Fonda, and I just saw that she made a video, and I started doing these sun salutations, which I know now is Surya A and B, from being a yogi. But it was very hard, but I remember feeling much lighter physically after I did a few of the poses. And I really liked it very much, and I kind of, it was a phase, and I wasn't very involved for many years. And then on and off, I would sort of go back to it, but I never really deepened my appreciation for it. My sister actually was going through a yoga certification program herself a couple of years ago, and she asked me to join her with it. I was going through kind of a rough time in my life, some transitions, and I thought, okay, well, this sounds great. I'll just go with it. And I was overweight, and I really wasn't very flexible. And this group of people, most people who come into yoga are kind of searching for something. They don't know exactly what. They've had some kind of problem, or they're trying to get healthier for whatever reason. Maybe they just want to have more athleticism. But for the most part, a lot of people are looking for spiritual growth with yoga. And I just really took to it. And it was a very, very intense training. And I felt like my life changed a lot from the training and the types of people I've met. And I decided I wanted to be a different type of person in the world, promote different, I became myself. I fell in love with it, and I decided after the certification I was going to start doing it on my own and getting clients and building a business.
That's great. You received your yoga instructor certification in DC, right?
Right, from Tranquil Space Studio.
So when was that, and why did you decide to take your practice to the next level and become a yoga instructor?
Right. It was roughly 2 years ago that I got the certification. And I think that I started working with one of the teachers afterwards at Bicycle Space doing karma yoga, and I did that for over a year. And I just was teaching these classes of like 15, 16, 18 people, and I was getting really good at it. And I didn't know if I was going to enjoy it that much teaching as I would just being a student, but I did, and I saw the people coming to me afterwards and really appreciating my style, thinking it was unique from other classes they've taken, and it gave me a high from helping so many people, and I decided that I wanted to keep that going, and I thought that was a good way of having a good purpose in life for myself.
That's great. And then you formed Three Yoga Chicks with
Right.
your two sisters.
Right.
Why did you decide to go into this line of work together, and what's it like working with family?
Right. Well, that's a good question. I primarily do most of the work within the business. When we started the business, my other sister was more involved, and my other sister was doing marketing. But because of life circumstances, I'm primarily the business owner, and so yeah. I mean, working with family, I would say having 3 girls in the house that love to do yoga and care about nutrition has been really helpful because it keeps us all on the same path.
So nutrition was part of you lived in a healthy home growing up?
I wouldn't say my parents would. It's sort of I should say it's kind of a divide. My mom cared a lot about eating healthy and would read things, but my dad was very much not very healthy. So, but I would say through yoga and through the last couple of years, I've really refined my diet tremendously, and my sisters have done the same, and my mom has done the same. My dad's actually getting to that point as well, surprisingly. So it's been it's been over time that we've all done that. So it's been very nice.
Sounds like it. And you did lose an impressive amount of weight through yoga
Right.
and proper nutrition,
Right.
right? Could you briefly describe that journey and how it's changed you or even your life?
Okay. Well, before I started with yoga, I lost about 30-something pounds on Weight Watchers. And then when I did the yoga certification, the weight started coming off from that too. And in yoga, the sister science of yoga is Ayurveda. And that deals with your doshas. And there's, I don't know if you want me to go into detail about this, but I'll say briefly, there's 3 doshas, Vata, Kapha, and Pitta, and you can be a combination of them. But so when we're learning about this philosophy, we're understanding the way our body works and how food is used to either heal our bodies or enliven them or detoxify or to make you feel really full and sick. And so through yoga and through Ayurveda, I became very aware of what foods were healing towards me. I would feel it. I would feel differently. And I would take that time to notice different reactions I had. And then I was able to refine my diet more that way.
So just out of curiosity, what were some foods that maybe, aren't unhealthy foods, but for you, they're just not good foods for you, or foods that really have a super positive impact on you, but they're not thought of as like a super antioxidant?
Okay, well, everybody's different. Most yogis will have in the morning, first thing, a glass of water with lemon juice in it. I actually really love coffee, so I haven't been able to break that habit, but there's evidence that coffee is good too. But it detoxifies your body right away. Like citrus foods, water-based foods, they will just clean you out right in the morning. It's wonderful. Things that are very healthy, I've been eating a lot of very whole foods. Like I'll make a natural hummus, or I'll make energy bars with kale and like sesame seeds and stuff, which I gave you actually.
Thank you.
But things that cause inflammation in the body, such as lots of bread and gluten, especially those kinds of heavy foods. Animal products can also cause a lot of gas and just bloating, and if you're lactose intolerant. A lot of people are, and they're not really aware of it, that dairy doesn't affect them that well. But I've been incorporating a lot of fresh fruits and vegetables into everything, and just trying to find really good ways of cooking the vegetables, so it's really tasty, and it's not a side dish, but it's more of like 3/4 of the actual meal.
Gotcha. Yeah, I remember seeing that in the Washingtonian piece. It was like half of your dinner
Right.
was veggies,
Yeah.
which is great. And then your breakfast included veggies too, which is common in some places, but here in the United States,
That's true.
people think twice about it. Do you have any advice, or do you give advice for other people who are looking to lose weight, or even maybe just even feel better in their own skin?
Right. I do have clients that, so aside from yoga, I do offer advice about general wellness and what foods have worked for me, and what strategies for stress reduction, things that just to help you have an overall, comfortable life in all aspects, spirituality, physical, mental. I'm not a certified nutritionist, but I do offer tips as to what has helped me, especially food choices.
Gotcha. And do you have any favorite healthy or maybe not so healthy Jewish foods that you like to occasionally splurge on? Or, you mentioned hummus, which I guess would fall
Right.
into the healthy category.
Right. Jerusalem eggplants are delicious, and I'll eat that with a little bit of olive oil. The Israeli foods are actually a lot healthier than, I would say, secular Jewish foods.
Right, the Ashkenazi type stuff.
Yeah, marinated olives, things like that. Pomegranates are delicious on top of hummus, like I said, or just some. I happen to like Greek yogurt. I can put some honey on that. These are more Middle Eastern foods. As far as traditional Jewish foods, it's funny because my husband's family makes a lot of challahs all the time. And I started getting into making challah, and I felt so sick after eating it because I haven't been used to really eating this bread and this heavy doughy thing. And I just was like, I really should not be making that anymore.
Yeah.
So it's hard with the Jewish foods, the potato kugels and stuff. These are not really healthy foods for the body. But
latkes aren't good for me?
no, but actually one of the strategies I have been doing with other recipes are making alternatives to dishes. For example, I use cauliflower instead of potatoes to make cauliflower mashed potatoes. So I'm thinking now, as I'm talking to you, maybe I should do that with the latkes, make a cauliflower-based latke.
Ooh.
Yeah.
And if people were interested in that type of thing, I understand that, your recipes aren't just kept as a secret between you and your husband. You actually make some YouTube videos, right?
Right. We're going to do another one soon. I actually am a perfectionist with testing all the recipes to make sure that everything really is the best that it could possibly be. So I feel like my recipes are a representation of myself and what I want to promote in the world. So we've sort of been perfecting an energy bar right now. So I'll see how you guys like it. Maybe you'll give me advice on how to change it or not.
Thanks.
But,
So if people, wanted to eat the way you do and try some of your recipes, where would they follow you? Is it a YouTube channel or a website?
Right. From 3 Yoga Chicks, I actually post the videos that I promote. So I made a delicious raw vegan key lime pie. That was my first video, which was fabulous. I actually took it to a raw vegan potluck. And it was so good that my husband did not know, and other people, they did not know that it was not dairy-based.
Wow.
It was very, very good.
Ooh, that sounds great.
yeah.
And then, of course, that works as a part dessert, too.
Of course.
If you wanted to bring it to a Shabbat or something.
That actually, cooking raw vegan is an interesting way of not cooking on Shabbat. It's very debatable, and I have conversations about this because you technically are not cooking if you're not heating anything, right? So just chopping up vegetables and putting things together, I mean, that's a nice way of cooking on Shabbos, but not cooking, right?
Yeah.
So.
I hear you. So actually, before you got involved with yoga, or before you worked and made yoga, before you made yoga your career, you
Right.
worked in the corporate world.
Right.
What did you do, and why did you leave it? I understand you now focus on stress reduction in your practice. Is
Right.
there a link there at all?
It's funny. I worked in a cubicle for many years, and every day I would be in the cubicle. I worked in recruiting and I worked in resource management, and every day I would sit there and I would think, when is my real life going to start? Like, this is cool, but I was just hoping that my life would actually begin at some point, and I knew that I wanted to have a purpose, and I wanted to promote something that only I could do in the world. I mean, there's a lot of yoga instructors, of course, but I feel like I'm personally connecting to my clients in a genuine way that's different from taking a class. Like, I work one-on-one with a lot of people, and it allows me to feel really fulfilled in life, which I was lacking. I just felt like a number, like a peon in the corporate world. So that's why I changed.
Yeah, speaking of what you just said, you do teach in some studio classroom settings, but for the most part, most of your business is just one-on-one right here in the metropolitan area, right?
Currently it is. I am deciding to grow in a different direction as well, growing into corporate yoga, which I'm very interested in right now. So I'm researching some different places. I'm speaking to people about that. That's the next phase. Should I talk about that right now? Or?
I mean, just briefly, what would that entail?
Well, there's a lot of business in the area, especially law firms, banks, and other very stressful environments where the productivity of the workers is very much, is so important that they keep their energy levels up, and also they don't burn out. So it's like a lot of people in New York, like in Wall Street and other financial institutions, have decided to incorporate new yoga philosophies, taking some time out to just do some relaxation breathing and to change their diet, and just to do some movements around their cubicle, their office space, to allow them to get out of their stressful head for a few minutes. We call it in yoga like the monkey head, like all of these like thoughts and things that are circulating in your mind that are preventing you from just being clear and focused. And so yoga actually does that for a lot of people. It allows them to just take a break from all the chaos that's going on and just calm down, get to the point of what you are seeking. And so I've noticed a lot of the firms in this area are also kind of taking New York's lead on that. And I'm researching and planning to work with a few companies with their employees.
Very cool.
Thank you.
I'm never too old to try something new.
Right.
Why is that? Why is that the motto that you choose to live by, and how do you work that thinking into your daily life?
Okay. I think, starting a career, in your mid-30s and changing, your goals and, when I was younger, I thought I was definitely going to work in the corporate, corporate realm and just, stay on track, like do what everybody else was doing. And I felt that maybe, I was kind of too old to try something new. I was too old to change my career. And it proved to be wonderful. And I think that anyone at any point in their life, if they feel that need to grow in a different direction, should really pursue that and not let the outside world be a reason for avoiding that risk. And most people will be extremely happy and actually inspired by you that you change your life for the better. They'll want to do the same as well.
Nice. And if any, which organizations are you involved with? Are you part of any groups or clubs outside of your company?
Right. Well, I do belong to the Vegan Society of DC, the Vegetarian Society of DC as well. I belong to some raw vegan meetups. I belong to, well, I go to shul a lot with my husband. I go to Six and I a lot, Addis Israel, occasionally Kesher. So we just started going to the one in Arlington. It was formerly the Arlington Fairfax Shul. It just changed over. But we just moved here, so that's kind of why we just got affiliated with that. But for the most part,
You moved here from DC?
what?
You moved here
From Northern Virginia.
McLean.
Yeah.
Right?
So for the most part, Six and I has been sort of our home shul right now. My husband's father is a rabbi, so we do a lot of individualized study as well about religious stuff. So it's interesting.
Sounds great. Well, that actually brings me to my next question. How, if at all, do your Jewish values affect your work?
So I was actually thinking about this the other day. Well, there's a lot of debate within the Jewish community about, the practice of yoga, because in some way, you are sort of worshiping like the sun or different kinds of imagery or something. And, is that like a religious philosophy or not? And I was actually talking about this the other day with someone, and we were saying, yoga is really about a supplement to any religious philosophy. You have a lot of people who are Christians who take yoga. You have a lot of Jewish people that take yoga. And it just deepens your own awareness of your own faith. So it's sort of very generic at this point, yoga. So in some ways, it brings me closer to God. And so it deepens my relationship within Judaism when I practice yoga, because I have that in mind. I'm not thinking about, so when I'm thinking about incorporating the spirituality around me, I think God is present around me. So does that make sense to you? Yeah.
To me, sure.
Okay. Hopefully, maybe I can answer that better. I'm trying to think of another way of expressing it.
If you want to rephrase it, you certainly can. And I think that's pretty clear, but it's recorded, so there's no problem if you do want to rephrase. Are there any like yogic principles that you find overlap with Jewish values or principles? I mean, do you ever in your yoga practice find yourself maybe find anything really resonating with you as a Jew, or perhaps when you teach your clients, maybe you have clients who you explain things to a certain way?
Sure. Well, one thing that comes to mind is the namas and niyamas, which are principles in yoga philosophy, and some of them include be kind to others, don't harm animals, which is very similar to the way we kill animals in in Jewish tradition. There are a lot of things that overlap. You're basically thinking of having a very ethical, kind approach to life, which is very similar to the Ten Commandments and how we decide to move through life being productive, good people.
Great.
So, sure.
And finally, you chose a career that appeals to you and that makes you happy, so maybe it wouldn't be right to ask what you do for fun, because I get the impression that your career is fun for you.
It is fun for me, yeah.
But what else do you do for fun? What hobbies do you have?
Okay, well, obviously, cooking is sort of part of my job, but I love to go dancing. That's like I do that all the time.
Salsa?
What? I haven't tried salsa, but I go club dancing. I do that a lot. And I spend a lot of time with my friends. I just got married a couple months ago, so I've kind of just been transitioning into having like a nice home and organizing that, like buying lots of things for the house. But yeah, I kind of just have a simple life. I love going to art galleries and farmers markets and just being amongst nature and swimming, hiking, things like that.
That's nice. Is there anything you'd like to add? Anything that we should know about you?
Let me think. Well, I should say that yoga is a way of life, and a lot of people are intimidated by getting into it because they feel they have to be a certain weight or they have to be a certain age. And in my practice, I have people from all ages, people who are very young in their low 20s who just, want to have the yoga butt and want to be very, just look really great. And you have other people who are much older, like in nursing homes, and they just are very happy that they can move their arms, and that brings them peace. So I think there's so many different ways of interpreting what means to you, what is helpful for you within the yoga practice, that you should be able to find some part of it, whether the nutrition aspect or the flexibility aspect, and just try slowly to embrace it and not think so much you have to look or be a certain way that society demands of you. That's important.
So do you think that everyone can really benefit from yoga? I mean, is it one of those things that is just kind of a positive thing to add to most people's lives, in your opinion?
Exactly. And you can start out very small. With the types of people that I work with and types of classes, I've had a fun experience. I was teaching a very sweaty, hot, not Bikram yoga, but just it was a very acrobatic kind of yoga class, and a guy actually sweat. He slid off the mat, the yoga mat, and it was like this big crash because his hands were really wet. And so people don't really understand that yoga can be very intense exercise just as much as running. It depends on the kind of class you take. Or it can be very gentle and relaxing right before you go to bed. So I think, it runs the gamut of all different types of classes. There's rocket yoga, which does a lot of headstands and all of that kind of craziness. But yeah, and the philosophy, I think, should not be overlooked too, because the philosophy of caring about your body, caring about yourself, is so significant, and that's really much more part of yoga than even the asanas, all the different movements. One thing I wanted to add is part of the reason I was able to lose weight and get healthier was because of the practice itself of the transitioning between difficult poses, stopping yourself, being present in the moment, pushing yourself, and then coming back. It allows you to really accept yourself, accept your life the way it is, and it's just such a metaphor for the highs and lows of life, and to keep trying again without feeling judgment. There's no mirrors in doing a yoga class because we don't want people to feel self-conscious. We just want them to feel confident with the body that God gave them. And every pose is not going to look the same for different people because people are not always designed that way. We have a lot of people who have scoliosis, so their back's going to have that curve to it, and they can't really get into a triangle pose, or it just won't look the same. And that's just the beauty of life. Everyone's on their own journey through getting healthier, and we should all, as a community, especially the Jewish community, embrace that.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Really appreciate it.
Sure.
Lacey?
I was trying one not to cough. That's all.